Good morning, everyone. I hope my screen is seen.
Yes.
So, yeah, let me start. So, the organizers have given me this subject, and I think it is an important subject. To be frank, I have never looked too much into these interactions because given the training in transplant and the day-to-day interactions with patients, we usually know intuitively that this should be done and this should not be done. But today, talking to the dietitian group and to our colleague nephrologists, and if any students are attending, it is important for us to understand what medicines we are giving and the food what we are eating. Let me start with the case as I always do. 40-year-old male, 3 years after renal transplantation with a normal baseline creatinine on maintenance immunosuppression, prednisolone, mycophenolate, mofetil, and tacrolimus, which is a standard we use, presented with a raised creatinine, high blood pressure, and seizures. His MRI and CSF were normal. Tacrolimus levels were up to 40 nanograms per ml. We usually keep a target of 8 to 10 in the earlier period, and then usually it is 5 to 6, not more than that. It just depends on the stage of transplantation and how you're doing. But 40 was 4 times higher. He had visited a resort on the weekend and said that he had consumed a lot of Ayurvedic juices which had ginger, turmeric, and different kinds of fruits. So, it was like a matter of fact for him, but he said, I have done nothing else except taking medicines on time, being very sincere as I was. So now the question is, could these juices be a cause? Because that was the only thing different this man had done. So we all have to remember medicines can treat and cure many health problems. However, they must be taken properly to ensure that they are safe and effective. Medication should be extremely specific in their effects, have the same predictable effect for all patients, never be affected by concomitant food or medications, exhibit linear potency, be totally non-toxic in any doses, and require only a single dose to affect a permanent cure. However, we all know this ideal drug is yet to be discovered. Most of the patients will ask, Doctor, iska kuch side effect to nahi hoga? See, I always tell the patients, medicines are a double-edged sword. You should know how to take it, you should know how to use it, and you should know the rules and regulations around it. Diet and lifestyles can sometimes have a significant impact on the drugs. When a food affects the medications in the body, this is called a food-drug interaction. Food can prevent medicine from working the way it should and can cause a medicinal side effect to become better or worse, and or cause a new side effect altogether. Drugs can also change the way your body uses the food. So the food affects the drug absorption, the drug affects the food absorption, and there may be a totally third side effect which we may come across. So we should be very knowledgeable about what we are using. Like food, drugs taken by mouth must be absorbed through the lining of the stomach or the small intestine. Consequently, the presence of food in the digestive tract may reduce the absorption of a drug. Often such interactions can be avoided by taking the drug 1 hour or 2 hours after eating. 1 hour before or 2 hours after. So most of the transplant physicians will want to give most of the important drugs on an empty stomach and tell the patients that you should take your food either 1 hour before or 2 hours later. Early studies did focus mostly on the potential changes in the drug absorption caused by the concurrent food or meal intake, the oral viability of certain antimicrobials such as tetracycline, isoniazid, rifampicin decreased with food. Clinicians therefore have been instructing patients to take these drugs with food to avoid the interactions. So, rifampicin, INH, we usually tell the patients take before breakfast. Failure to minimize these drug-nutrient interactions may increase the risk of treatment failure for infections because, say, for example, in cases of TB, if we do not give the TB medicines properly and they're not absorbed, we will not cure the infection. So this is very important. Similarly, addition of a drug regime may lead to depletion of nutrients, resulting in clinically significant adverse events like folate, vitamin D. All these are usually interacting. So the potentials of drug-nutrient interaction increase with the number of drugs taken by a patient. We all know that organ transplant recipients are therefore at a risk for drug-nutrient interactions because multiple medications are used to manage graft rejections, opportunistic infections, and associated complications. So for the dietitian group of people, what are the common medications we use? We use immunosuppression. We will use some prophylactic medications, which are like cotrimoxazole, antibacterial, an antiviral. There may be an antifungal. There may be a BP medicine. There may be a diabetes medicine. So all these are given together. So the list of medicines is huge. So as doctors and as pharmacists, people have to see whether drug-to-drug interactions are there. But as nutritionists and as doctors, we as a team have to see that none of the medicines are interacting with the food profile of the patient. Unrecognized or unmanaged drug-nutrient interactions in this patient population can have adverse impacts on their outcomes. With recently increase in understanding of the metabolism and transport of drugs, we now know what time the drugs get absorbed, how the drugs get absorbed, what are the kinetics. So we are now thoroughly advanced. So why do certain foods cause interactions? So we got the background, but we have to now understand how the drugs act and how the food acts. So the interactions are usually due to either the natural ability of the food to activate the body, even in the ways that can be similar to medications, or as a result of drug-food interaction with the medications. For transplant recipients, the most frequent interactions are those that activate the immune system and those that affect the ability of the drug to enter or exit the blood. So if I have eaten a drug and I have had a food which is going to increase the removal of the drug, I might get a lower level of the drug. If I eat a food which is going to decrease the removal of the drug, my body will show a higher level of the drug. So as a result, some foods or herbal products may no longer be safe to consume after receiving a transplant. So by incorporating the current concept and knowledge of these interactions, the drug-nutrient interaction can be defined as an alteration of kinetics or dynamics of a drug or a nutrient element or a compromise in nutritional status as a result of addition of a drug. Most important aspects according to this definition are the resultant changes in the kinetic and the dynamic effects. Kinetics will refer to absorption, metabolism, disposition, and elimination of a drug, example cyclosporin, or a nutrient, example vitamin D, whereas the dynamics will refer to the clinical and the physiological response to a drug, example what happens because of the toxicity or a nutritional element. So these are the basic classifications: that ex vivo biopharmaceutical inactivation, interactions affecting the absorption phase, that means the pre-systemic metabolism, the pre-systemic transport, the pre-systemic binding and complexation. Third type, interaction affecting the systemic and the physiological disposition. And fourth is the elimination. So we have a drug, we have a food. Either it causes an increase in the action of drugs or it causes a decrease in the action of drugs, and both these will lead to adverse effects, because if you have increased action of drugs, you will have toxicity of the drug. If you have a decreased action of drug, you might get a rejection, because immunosuppression medications, if the action reduces, you might get a rejection of the organ. So either ways, the adverse effect is not good. So importance of studying this: optimal drug efficacy, improved compliance, decreased need of adding drugs. So if you have adverse effects, like if you get a rejection, you will add more drugs. We don't want that. We don't want that there is toxicity of the drug and then you are combating the toxicity. We don't want that. So we want optimal nutritional status. We want no adverse effects. We do not want to add more drugs. And we want to reduce the cost of healthcare services. And therapeutic importance, of course, the alter the intended response to the medication, cause the drug toxicity, and alter the normal nutritional status. So in keeping our patients healthy, a delicate balance between the drugs and a diet is very important. So now, what are the drugs commonly used in transplantation? So when I post a patient for transplant, I'm going to use induction immunosuppression, and this induction immunosuppression will have IL-2 blockers like basiliximab or anti-thymocyte or anti-lymphocyte agents. These are injectables given as one shot in the hospital or 2 shots while in the hospital. The main important stuff is maintenance immunosuppression, because maintenance immunosuppression means that you are going to take this all your life, and the levels or the dosages of these drugs are going to keep changing based on the stage post-transplant. First and foremost, steroids. Now, steroids are the basis of immunosuppression since about 60 to 70 years in medicine now. Those were the initial drugs which were used for transplantation and very effective. As time has gone by, the medical community has realized that we can minimize on the steroids and we can optimize on everything so that the immunosuppression is on the target. It is targeting the cells which can cause rejection, and at the same time, we are reducing the side effects. We all know that steroids can cause side effects in the form of obesity, post-transplant diabetes, bone health. There are a lot of things, early cataracts, and over years, minimization of steroid use has helped that. So there is not much food-drug interaction, which I will tell you later, but this is about steroids. Calcineurin inhibitors, cyclosporin and tacrolimus are the common most drugs which might be used as a combination with steroids. Mammalian target of rapamycin inhibitors, sirolimus, everolimus, have recently been added to the armamentarium, and these can be used in permutations and combinations. Antimetabolite agents like azathioprine and mycophenolate mofetil. So there will be a combination of 3 drugs. It might be a steroid, it might be either tacrolimus or cyclosporin, or an MMF azathioprine, or you add a sirolimus, everolimus based on the indication. So these are the basic type of drugs which as dietitians you will come across when you see patients. Now, commonest food drug interactions are seen with calcineurin inhibitors and mTOR inhibitors. So cyclosporin, tacrolimus, sirolimus, everolimus, these are the commonest drugs where we should be very careful. So these are substrates of P-glycoprotein and CYP3A4. These require careful monitoring due to its narrow therapeutic index. Drugs, food, herbs that inhibit or compete as substrates. So these are the substrates. Whatever food, drug or herbs are going to compete as substrates for these enzymes can increase the absorption and reduce the metabolism of calcineurin inhibitors. That will of course cause an increased serum concentration, and because it will cause a serum concentration to increase, the potential to be toxic increases. And like I said, these have a very narrow therapeutic index, which means therapeutic index means the amount of drug required to cause toxicity, the amount of lowest drug to cause rejection. So the therapeutic index is very narrow. You can go either side of the spectrum and have a problem. Then drugs, food or herbs that can induce these enzymes, the CYP3A4. If there are food or drugs, they induce these enzymes. What will happen? The drug will be eliminated very fast from the system. And if it gets eliminated very fast, the levels will drop. If the levels of these medicines drop, these are immunosuppression medicines, the allograft, the kidney, heart, liver, intestine, pancreas, whatever is there will get rejected because the immunosuppression level has come down. So you do not want a toxicity, you do not want a rejection. Now, what is the toxicity profile of these? The toxicity profile is wide. You can have as much as hyperkalemia causing a heart block, muscle weakness. It can cause a cardiac arrhythmia. You can have a hypermagnesemia. You can have a hyperglycemia. So if there is a high tacrolimus or a cyclosporin level, sometimes these may induce NODAT or post-transplant diabetes, like the previous speaker has said. There can be hypercholesterolemia. There can be hyperhomocystinemia. There can be hypovitaminosis D, and there can be peripheral neuropathies, there can be seizures, there can be acute kidney injuries. Okay, so these are the side effect profiles of calcineurin inhibitors. Now, grapefruit has been very commonly studied and extensively studied because time and again that has come out as a common food interaction. So that's why I'll be covering it in a little more detail. Now, furanocoumarine rich grapefruit precipitates the drug interactions by strong inhibition of CYP3A and the P-glycoprotein. So that means that the substrate is actively competing and there is a strong inhibition. This enzyme is the most abundant P450 enzyme in the humans and is highly present in the liver and in the intestinal epithelial tissues. CYP3A4 is responsible for the biotransformation of 50% of the drugs currently used in the market. So the magnitude of interaction in some of the studies is very dramatic. So if people who have studied grapefruit, there have been more than 200 articles and they are showing a 5-fold increase in oral absorption of a drug, which can be achieved if you have a grapefruit juice. As some of these drugs are being absorbed in the intestinal epithelial cells, they are immediately metabolized or they are extracted by these extrahepatic enzymes even before entering the portal blood and absorbed. So the metabolic activity by the gut is the key component of the pre-systemic first pass effect and is a significant limiting factor of oral bioavailability for many drugs. So grapefruit juice is inhibiting the gut wall CYP3A4 with clinically undetectable effect of hepatic CYP3A4. As a result, the drugs that are susceptible to significant extraction by the gut before entering the stream will have increased absorption when grapefruit juice is given. So, and this is not the fruit, it is the juice. The juice has a lot of concentration as compared to the whole fruit. So most of the studies have said that it is more of the concentrated form of the juice which has a lot of fruit in it rather than just eating the fruit. There are studies who are showing delayed effects of up to a week where the levels of these juices can cause interactions with the drugs. Now, we have seen that these can increase the levels. Now in India, when we were students, we were taught that, our patients are not that affording. We are in a developing world. Can we use medications and food to our advantage? So when you're looking at a situation where certain food is increasing the level of a drug, our mind thinks, okay, let me use this food. Maybe I can use lesser of the dose of the drug and get away with a cheaper option. But no, the marked increase in the CNI caused by the grapefruit, people have studied it across because even the American economy will require help. They saw that a 60% increase in the cyclosporin or the tacrolimus absorption may translate to potential cost saving of $500 to $600 per month of the drug cost. So in Indian rupees, it is magnanimous. However, whether the magnitude of interaction is the same with a fresh fruit juice or a frozen concentrate is uncertain. The magnitude of the changes happening in individuals is uncertain. So it is not advantageous to us to use this food interactions to our benefit. But there are certain drugs like diltiazem and azoles which can be used to our advantage to bring the levels up. But again, it requires monitoring. So although the idea of reducing costs is tempting, these two factors strongly question the safety of the drug-nutrient interaction. Now, other than grapefruit juice, there are few more things which have been coming into limelight. One is the tango of turmeric and tacrolimus. Now, turmeric is such a benign thing, and in Indian spices, turmeric remains the cornerstone to give it color, to give it taste, to give it a immune boosting effect. So, turmeric has noted to be moderately inhibiting the action of the hepatic CYP3A4 enzyme. Many studies have come to this effect recently, and they have studied animal models to study the AUC, area under the curve, values of tacrolimus in rats pre-treated with grapefruit, ginger or turmeric juice were significantly larger than those pre-treated with water. Further study found that pre-treatment with turmeric increases the plasma levels of tacrolimus in murine models. Now, we all know rats and human beings have a similar metabolic system. Hence, the studies in rats are usually translated to humans. In one published case, a tacrolimus concentration of 29 nanograms per ml was recorded, leading to nephrotoxicity. Now, our patient has a 40. Remember, it is very high. And that was following ingestion of 15 spoonfuls of turmeric. Now, of course, the curcumin concentration in the turmeric also matters. So turmeric to turmeric, it will matter. but turmeric has been noted to alter the function and expression of glycoprotein and the enzymes. Okay, but the relevance remains unclear because the levels are not. This was a study from London. Now, this is a study from Japan from 2012, and they investigated the effects of citrus fruits like pomelo. Then they studied ginger, which is a commonly used spice, and turmeric. Now, all these three, they also compared with grapefruit juice. So, they confirmed the effect of grapefruit, turmeric, ginger again in these studies. So what they did was they gave pomelo juice after its administration for 1 day or 3 consecutive days. They were trying to see the pharmacokinetics of the tacrolimus in the rats. So the tacrolimus blood concentration of the rats pre-treated with 100% pomelo juice were significantly higher than those pre-treated with water. On the other hand, the tacrolimus blood concentrations of the rats pre-treated with 50% of pomelo juice were not significantly different from those pre-treated with water. So it tells us that the pomelo tacrolimus interaction showed a concentration dependency. Even low concentration could enhance the blood concentrations after repeated administrations. The inhibitory effect of 100% pomelo juice disappeared after 3 days of intake. The area under the curve values of tacrolimus in the rats pre-treated with grapefruit juice, ginger juice, and turmeric were significantly larger than those pre-treated with water. So there are multiple studies now showing, and if you think these are the commonly used food materials in our country, grapefruit juice not very common, more common abroad. But ginger, turmeric, citrus fruits like pomelo and some kind of oranges similar to the pomelo kind of juice can really cause a problem. So what foods and herbs should be avoided after receiving a transplant? So grapefruit and grapefruit juice. So some citrus flavored drinks, we have to tell our patients have grapefruit extract in them. So it is important to check the ingredient list. Pomegranates and pomegranate juice. Several oranges, normal oranges are fine in moderation, but if people drink juices, they can be dangerous. Pomelos, as I have shown. Other fruits and vegetables should be consumed in moderation, like grapes, cranberries, tangerines, cauliflower, and broccoli, because these have a similar interaction. Ginger juice and high doses of turmeric. Now, why am I writing high doses of turmeric? Because we cannot tell our patient not to eat turmeric, not to eat ginger. Ginger and turmeric are good, but in a normal amount, which is used for cooking normal food. If someone is eating turmeric as an immune booster, that might be dangerous. What supplements or herbal products should be avoided after receiving a transplant? So many a times, we are seeing patients as physicians, you are seeing patients as dietitians. We are all concentrating on BP, diabetes, protein, lipids, fat, but we are not concentrating on the surrounding things which the patient eats. Sometimes the patient may be loving herbal teas which have chamomile. So chamomile again is supposed to induce the enzymes. So these are the lists of St. John's, what is not available in India. It is from abroad, but it is like a fruit. And ginseng and ginger and turmeric. What about other immunosuppression? Steroids, azathioprine, MMF. Now, steroids, azathioprine, MMF do not have a lot of interaction, but yes, the absorption with food is hampered. So we usually give it on empty stomach. So you have to remember that. Steroids always go at 8 a.m. with the steroid surge in the body. Steroids can cause diabetes, obesity. So a dietitian can always, or a nutrition can always tell them about those lifestyle modifications. Azathioprine, MMF, mainly bone marrow suppression, not much interaction with food. So I'm not going to cover them, not very relevant over here. So our case, we had this man who was very stable on transplant. All of a sudden he decides, oh, I'm okay to take these Ayurvedic juices, which are given as treatment, cleansing for the body, and see what it causes. Neurotoxicity seen along with a food-drug interaction. So we have to be very careful and we have to counsel our patients. So to summarize, the consequences of unrecognized, unmanaged drug-nutrient interactions in the transplant recipients can be very serious. These may include severe fluid electrolyte disturbances, osteoporosis, atherosclerosis, and drug-induced neurotoxicity and nephrotoxicity due to increased drug exposure. These adverse outcomes represent important contributing factors to post-transplant morbidity and mortality. See, someone can die of a neurotoxicity, someone can die of a heart stopping because of hyperkalemia. So it is very dangerous. With the improved success in lung, pancreas, small bowel, and even multivisceral organ transplantation and the use of newer immunosuppressive regime, the risk of nutrient depletion and other post-transplant complications will have to be assessed in each patient subpopulation. So check the medicine list, anticipate the interactions, and counsel the patient. Thank you.